Hey you guys, this is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, chapter 14 review. Kind of an interesting chapter. Um, it's it's really all about this family that lives in the cottage. So it says in the second paragraph, the name of the old man was de Lacy. He was descended from a good family in France, so they have money. He had lived for many years in affluence, respected and beloved. His son was bred in the service of his country, so perhaps like some kind of military position. And Agatha ranked with the ladies of the highest distinction. So they have all grown up with money, okay? Now, Mary Shelley makes a few comments, like political, social comments in this chapter, kind of on the Muslim faith and kind of against Christianity and kind of for Christianity in various places. So it's just interesting. What happens is, look at the third paragraph. It says, the father of Safi had been the cause of their ruin. He was a Turkish merchant and had inhabited Paris for many years. So a Turkish merchant would be Muslim. When for some reason, which I could not learn, and this is again the creature talking, so he doesn't understand kind of the background, but he has been educated, remember, in that surface level of religious issues. So it says, for some reason, which I could not learn, he became obnoxious to the government. So this is more just like Mary Shelley saying, sometimes the government will arrest someone for a reason that does not seem legitimate, okay? He was seized and cast into prison the very day that Safi arrived from Constantinople to join him. He was tried and condemned to death. Okay, now we already saw how quickly the justice system worked against Justine. A little teeny piece of evidence, the locket in her pocket, and then she's guilty and death. So we know that they don't waste a whole lot of time trying to figure out if somebody is actually guilty or innocent of anything in this time period. So it's important to note that. The next sentence, really important. The injustice of his sentence was very flagrant. All Paris was indignant. Now, in today's society, when people are indignant, we have a lot of protesting going on, people complaining and screaming and shouting like, we're angry, we're angry, we're angry. Right here, Paris, indignant. We're angry, we don't like this, we don't like what you're doing. Well, this is injustice, injustice. So, and the very next sentence, or piece of that sentence, it was judged that his religion and wealth, rather than the crime alleged against him, had been the cause of his condemnation. So it's like people are kind of looking at the facts of the case and they're saying, there was no reason for this guy to be arrested. So that's a whole political commentary that Mary Shelley is making, that perhaps in this time, if you go back, to the early 1800s, that many people had been rounded up for nothing more than their faith and had been put to death for like trumped up charges and things that they hadn't really done. Now, in the next paragraph, we learn a little bit more about Felix, that he had accidentally been present at the trial, and his horror and indignation were uncontrollable when he heard the decision of the court. So, along with all the people who are like, what the heck, that he just says, this can't stand. But remember, he is part of a family with money and connections, and he has some possible like military service. So he says, you know what? I have it within my power to do something to help free this man. So he tries, and he eventually he found a strongly grated window in an unguarded part of the building, which lighted the dungeon of the unfortunate Muhammadan, who, loaded with chains, he's all chained up, waited in despair the execution. So Felix visited the grate. He's going to this barred window at night and made known to the prisoner his intentions. So Felix is saying, hey, I'm going to bust you out. I'm going to get you out. Well, the Turk, amazed and delighted, endeavored to kindle the zeal of his deliverer by promises of reward and wealth. And he's just saying, how can I thank you for doing this? I have money. Again, he's a successful merchant. What can I do to reward you? And Felix is like kind of offended, I'm not doing this for a reward. I'm only doing this because it's the right thing to do. I want to help you be free. So Felix rejected his offers with contempt, like, no. Yet when he saw the lovely Sophy, who was allowed to visit her father, and who, by her gestures, expressed her lively gratitude, the youth could not help owning to his mind that the captive possessed a treasure, Sophy, which would fully reward his toil and hazard. So Felix saying, if you are going to pay me in some way, the arrangement that you're thinking by giving your daughter in marriage to me, that would be acceptable to me. She's awfully pretty. And she seems to think, this is okay. Now, go back 200 years, and in any society, Christian or Muslim, women had very little to no say in anything. In a couple of paragraphs, we'll talk about the difference there between the two faiths. The Turk quickly perceived the impression that his daughter had made on the heart of Felix. So the Turk is saying, I think my daughter likes him. He's, whatever. They seem attracted to each other physically, but they don't speak the same language. Note that. And Felix says in that paragraph right after the one I was just reading, Felix was too delicate to accept his offer, yet he looked forward to the probability of the event as the consummation of his happiness. So I don't want to say yes because that would be like rude and aggressive of me, but if this is how it all turns out, then it seems like a good plan. Okay, delicate. So they go through with the plans, and Felix gets some letters from the girl who doesn't speak the language, but she has an interpreter, and she's like, okay, I can go on board with this, but look at the last sentence in that. She thanked him in the most ardent terms for his intended services toward her parent. So thank you very much. This is amazing that you're helping my dad. And at the same time, note this, she gently deplored her own fate. To deplore something is to strongly dislike it. It's like, I hate that I am just a pawn to be negotiated and given at will. And I'm sure many women felt this way. Like, I have no say in my life. Go here, okay. Go there, okay. So she's gently saying, I wish I had a say. But so that's kind of Mary Shelley like creeping in there saying, look at the plight of women in this time. And so there's a lot of social commentary in the writings of women at this time. So anyway, the next couple of paragraphs, really interesting. I'm sorry it's so deep and heavy today. He has the copies. Now skip the next paragraph, and it says, Sophy related that her mother was a Christian Arab. So a Christian in the vicinity of where most women are Muslim, okay? She was seized and made a slave by the Turks. So kidnapped and enslaved by the Turks, okay? So she's a slave, a female slave, but she's so beautiful that they don't abuse her. They just give her in marriage. They, the slave owners, give her in marriage, probably made a good financial deal for them. She had won the heart of the father of Sophy, who married her. So he is married. The Muslim man has married a Christian Arab woman. Now the man is a merchant, so he's off doing business most of the time. They have a young daughter, Safi, and the girl loves her mother, as young girls do. The young girl spoke in high and enthusiastic terms of her mother, who, born in freedom, that's a comparison where Shelley is saying, born in freedom, the freedom of a Christian upbringing, and then put into the bondage of slavery in the Muslim culture where she had been kidnapped and given to, spurned the bondage to which she was now reduced. She instructed her daughter in the tenets of her religion, Christianity. She taught Safi the Christian faith, did not teach her the Muslim faith, but they're in a Muslim culture, so Safi understands the Muslim faith, and taught her to aspire to higher powers of intellect. Again, kind of an insult against what Muslim women were allowed and not allowed to do, that they were not allowed to pursue intellectual paths, but that Christian women could, okay? And an independence of spirit forbidden to the female followers of Muhammad. And that right there, Mary Shelley is just saying, hey, that the Christian women have more freedoms and the Muslim women do not. And that then when the lady died, then the Muslim father is in charge of her future, Safi's future. So the lessons were indelibly impressed on the mind of Safi, who, and these are Mary Shelley's words, not mine, sickened at the prospect of again returning to Asia and being immured within the walls of a harem, allowed only to occupy herself with infantile amusements, ill-suited to the temper of her soul, now accustomed to grand ideas and a noble emulation of virtue. So, comparing the two faiths, Safi being under the control of her Muslim father is saying, I don't want to be sitting inside the walls of this place where I'm not allowed to pursue anything intellectual, that I would have to just sit and, engage with infantile amusements, something that is not interesting to her. Okay, so in the next sentence, the prospect of marrying a Christian and remaining in a country where women were allowed to take a rank in society was enchanting to her. So this goes to what Safi does next. So the day of the execution for the Turk was fixed, but on the night previous to it, he quitted his prison. That's because Felix busts him out of jail. And they end up over to, Felix conducted the fugitives through France to Lyons and across to Leghorn, where the merchant had decided to wait with favorable opportunity of passing into some part of the Turkish dominions. He wants to get back to Turkey somehow. He's got to make arrangements with some type of a caravan to get back to his country. So Safi decides to stay with her dad until the moment of his departure. But, and Felix remained with them in expectation of that. So everybody kind of knows what's going on. But they converse with one another. Again, they can't communicate, remember, they speak a different language, so they use an interpreter. Then the Turk, the dad, says, okay, I'm going to allow all this to happen, even though I don't really approve of my daughter marrying a Christian. But I have to pay, Felix in some way. So he says, the Turk, Mary Shelley writes, the Turk allowed this intimacy to take place, the talking, and encouraged the hopes of the youthful lovers, while in his heart he had formed far other plans. So it's like, I'm going to let this seem like I approve, but I'm actually not going to follow through with it. He loathed the idea that his daughter should be united to a Christian. He hates this. He's like, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure it doesn't happen. Thank you. I have to figure out another way to pay you. Maybe he's had some time to think about it. And so Felix the Turk does not want to appear like he's going back on his word. So now they're in Italy, and when the government of France, go down to the next paragraph, finds out that Felix was the one who helped the guy escape, his family, Agatha and his old blind father, are arrested and thrown into prison, and all their money is seized. And so Felix hears about this and he's like, okay, well, I have to help my family now. I can't help you, the Turkish merchant, and Safi. So he places Safi, he says, that Safi should remain as a boarder at a convent at Leghorn. And again, a convent, now that's going to be a place for Christian women. So he says it's a safe place for her to be. Convents were like a refuge for orphans and women who had no place to go. So this is like a perfect place for her. According to Felix, he says they will hold on to you until I can get to you. So he says it's safe. And then he goes back to Paris to deliver himself up to the vengeance of the law. I'm going to give myself up in the hopes of saving my family from suffering. Well, he did not succeed. They remained confined for 5 months. Then there's a trial. And then there is, in the trial, the decision to deprive them of their fortune and condemn them to exile. Get out of France. You are no longer welcome here. And by the way, we're taking all your money. So they end up in Germany. That's where the creature says, I found them there. So Felix soon learns while he's in exile in Germany that the, quote, treacherous Turk had, on discovering that Felix is now poor and has no money, that he became a traitor to the good feeling and honor and had quitted Italy with his daughter, insultingly sending a pittance of money, just a few small amounts of money, to aid him in some plan of future maintenance. Like, here, this should help you survive for the next bit of time. So that's how everybody in the family, the Felix, Agatha, and old man de Lacy, end up in the cottage, poor, separated. This is the isolation theme. Separated from their country, from their home language, from everyone they know and love, and they are alone and crying and sad. And then Felix, of course, who was like falling in love with Safi, he is like the most miserable of them all. Plus, he's the one that got them into this situation by deciding to break out the man from prison in the first place. So anyway, let's see. He could have endured the poverty, and while this distress had been the meed of his virtue, he gloried in it. But the ingratitude of the Turk and the loss of his beloved Safi were misfortunes more bitter and irreparable. So Felix is terribly miserable. But now that Safi is there, he has, or as it says, the arrival of the Arabian now infused new life into his soul. So everything is kind of turning around. Because, and I probably skipped that part. So Safi, I did skip it. Sorry, I'm going to go back for just a second. She had said, no, when her dad went off to go get away and to find that freedom, she said, no, I'm not going to be a part of this. And she said, when alone, Safi resolved in her own mind the plan of conduct that it would become her to pursue in this emergency. She made up her own mind to do something different, and that's why she gets away from her father. By some papers of her father, which fell into her hands, she heard of the exile of her lover. That's how she learns where they are in Germany, because of course she would think that he went back to France. And she formed her determination. She takes some jewels and then she departs for Germany. She had gone with a young girl from the convent who was her interpreter, but it says in the last paragraph that that girl gets sick and dies and leaves, isolation theme, leaves Safi alone in a foreign country. She doesn't speak the language, hardly knows where she's going, and all she knows is like the name of the town or something where Felix is. So she eventually gets there, and that is how she arrives. So sorry that took so long. It's really kind of a lot of heavy stuff, though. Anyway, I hope this is helpful, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.